Hey there, I'm Tana, Bengoa, and I'm here today to interview a new friend of mine, Kovan. I'm going to let Kovan say his last name because I don't want to say it wrong. And Kovan is going to just share with us a little bit about his story, his journey, where he's been, and where he is today. So I'm just going to leave it up to you to first tell him your last name for me.
All right, thanks, Tana. My name's Kovan Woolrab, and I've been born and raised in Idaho, and I ran into Tana a few weeks ago through another personal growth program, actually, and then just destiny, I guess, kind of brought us here. And so I guess to start off, I was born in Boise, Idaho. I've lived here my whole life, and I honestly had a pretty stable upbringing. My parents have always been together, and I have a younger brother, and there wasn't a whole lot of infighting or clash within the family, but
Just the two of you, just your two brothers were the only kids?
Yeah, just my brother and I, and I'd say I started to notice maybe when I was about 4 or 5. My brother's 2 years younger than me, and he started to capture my dad's attention, and they were kind of always into the same things. And I had initially bonded with my mom, and so my dad and my brother were really close. And when I wanted to hang out with my dad, he kind of seemed apathetic almost. He was doing it because it was almost an obligation to hang out with his son.
And you felt that as a little kid, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
And how did that make you feel?
It made me feel lonely, and then I would see him go and play with my brother and have a blast. And honestly, it seemed like whenever those two were playing together, it kind of didn't really matter what they were doing. They were just always having fun, and
you could feel their connection, and you didn't feel that connection, it sounds like, with your dad at all.
Correct. Yeah. And I would research things. I was really into reading and data research, and I would research things that I knew he liked and try to go do them on my own and get kind of good at them, and then want to do it with him. And he just didn't really ever seemed.
Were you ever able to talk to him or to your mom? Did you express your feelings about that to either one of your parents or to anybody?
I tended to bottle things and just kind of stuff everything down.
I can relate to that. I was one of those kids who never talked.
Oh yeah.
No wonder we hit it off so well. Right? We're probably just alike.
And I talked to my mom once in a while, but as I got older, even by the time I was 10 and 12, I had lots of anger issues, and I was just kind of, I wasn't out of control at this point, but I was just very angry at the world.
How would that anger show up, or would it? Or would you just bottle it all up inside?
I didn't tend to get into many physical fights, but I would, I turned it around on my brother and bullied him a lot, and I had a few school bullies, I guess, school nemesis, I guess, that we were just always fighting all the time, and it was usually verbal, like emotional degradation or whatever, and
not necessarily like duking it out on the schoolyard or anything, but just more verbal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that was what, more like in junior high or something, would you say?
That was still like 10,
even
12,
still in grade school?
Yeah, I was still between like 3rd and 4th grade. That's maybe when it peaked.
Wow.
And luckily I'd been in a Montessori school, and they really knew how to take care of that kind of thing. But after that Montessori school, my graduating class, when I went into 5th grade, was I think like 4 other people, so five of us total. And I went from the Montessori school to a much larger school.
Just a regular public school?
Yeah, the Galileo Math and Science Magnet School. And there's just a bunch of people, and they all knew each other. They're from Eagle Middle School, and so they kind of had their little cliques formed already. And I'd never been really good at making friends, and I was pretty antisocial. And I've always been an introvert too, especially emotionally. I didn't like expressing really much of anything to people besides anger. I felt comfortable expressing anger, and just like verbal confrontations with people. But so I didn't make very many friends there, and I just felt really uncomfortable. And I also had a pretty severely negative body image, just pale skin and red hair, and I get teased for my red hair.
Right.
And I felt like I wasn't in good shape. Like even at that time in my life, my friends were all playing sports, and I was playing sports too, but I didn't feel like I was as attractive, I guess.
Right. Did you not have that kind of that natural athletic ability?
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
I mean, is that?
Yeah, and so I was kind of, maybe on the lower half of. I played soccer too, and so that kind of turned into less of like a team sport, and mostly the team kind of gossiping about each other, and I got caught up in that too.
Yeah.
And so it was just a very negative environment, and I let myself just get completely kind of sucked into that. And so as I went through middle school and then into high school, I didn't have very many friends, and I had very low self-confidence, and I couldn't connect with people very well. I liked girls, but I felt uncomfortable being around them because I felt like almost embarrassed to be myself, my personality and my body, and just kind of everything that makes up who I am. And so that kind of played into just all my interactions with people. And as I grew older in high school, when I hit my junior year, I was 15 at the time. And that's when I was offered marijuana, and I got into that a little bit, and it was fun or whatever, but I got really into alcohol. My parents are drinkers, and so there's lots of alcohol around the house.
Okay, so it was accessible for you. So you got
very
a lot of
accessible,
it. You got a lot of it there. So were you drinking by yourself? I mean, just taking their alcohol and drinking it, or were you then now with other kids? Did that put you into a crowd then because you started drinking with other kids?
Yeah, so a couple things really. I was drinking on my own pretty much right from the beginning, but it also got me a lot of friends too, because now we had something, and I felt a lot more comfortable because the focus wasn't on our connection, it was on, it was on my connection with the substance and your connection with it, and we just so happened to have the use in common.
Yeah, I know that. I've been there.
So I felt a lot more comfortable in that environment, and plus everyone's so blasted that I just felt a lot more safe and that kind of thing. And then I got into opiates after that, and was using those for a few years.
So were you just using prescriptions like Oxycontin and that type of thing? So is that pretty big? Was that pretty big here? I know my niece had gotten into that when she was 15. She's 28 now. And she said it was back then in Washington, it was extremely prevalent in the high school that she was at. So
Idaho is kind of known for meth, but the Boise, Eagle areas were definitely like heroin and oxy and that kind of thing. So that was the crowd I started running with, and it served a couple purposes. I kind of got a social circle, and I could ignore myself and my problems, and then.
So were your parents have any idea that this was going on at all, or were they completely just oblivious to the fact that you were using?
They were for the most part oblivious, and they started to catch on after a little while of using of my use, just slip-ups here and there, and for the most part I could blame it on like, I was just drinking with my friends. They didn't know I was into the heavier stuff, and they kind of figured something along the lines of like they didn't want to push too hard and then push me out because I was already pretty
The one
disconnected.
question I always wonder about with kids, how on earth can you get all those drugs? I mean, it's got to cost quite a bit of money, and I know with opiates, you got to have it. You're hurting if you don't have it.
Yeah,
let
me think. I think my mom and dad and a few other people in my family all had surgery at the same time. And my grandparents had come over, and they had some medical stuff, and so they had a bunch of like Xanax, and they had Oxy, and just
So do you think that a lot of the drug use the kids are doing, they're actually getting the drugs from their parents' stash of stuff in the house?
Yeah, prescription pills wise, it's definitely coming from, because a lot of people they figure, okay, I can save this for, if they're not addicts themselves,
right.
They don't have a problem saving it for a future.
Might need this another. I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the kids stumble on it, and like I kind of randomly stumbled on it one day and was like, oh, I've heard things about this, so I'm gonna just try it, and then.
So this all led you to a pretty dark path, from what I understand. Did you end up getting off the drugs and then just mainly being in drinking? You told me that you were pretty much a blackout drinker all the time.
Yeah. So between like 16 and 18, I was pretty much just drinking to blackout. And it started on the weekends, and then it progressed to one day a week. Weekends
so you were
and one day,
still
and
in school, and you were able to hold down your school.
Yeah, so that was the other
requirements and whatever. I mean, were you able to finish school and
yeah,
pass your classes
actually,
and so forth?
I had a really high GPA, and I had really high test scores, and I have natural intelligence, so I could kind of cover that up. So that was another reason my parents didn't notice it, because I really enjoy school, and I was still reading throughout the whole thing, and that was I was always into solo activity stuff. Like I could pour through a textbook on my own. I didn't have to have.
So how did this all culminate for you, and how did you end up getting clean? Why did you get clean? Was it something you wanted to do? Were you forced into it? So I know we're getting a little into our time here, so let's get to that part of it.
So the more I was doing it, the more I was just feeling really, really alone, and I just like you mentioned earlier, just hopeless beyond any kind of glimpse of hope whatsoever. I thought I was going to be in this forever, for the rest of my life. And I felt like there was nothing that could ever save me, and so there was no point in even trying. And the more that kind of spiraled down, the more I just isolated, and it kind of came to a culmination in a few different ways. I remember the first time I overdosed, there were friends with me, and I knew I was overdosing at the time, and I was trying to get them to take me to the hospital, and none of them wanted to, and so I ended up obviously surviving it.
What were you on that time?
Just a mix of but so that was kind of the first wake up of. And it just made me feel even more alone, because it was like my closest friends, we were out at a music festival, and it was just, I felt like I had no one left, and I didn't want to talk to my parents about any of this, because I thought that they would come and punish me for it. And I guess since then I've come to the belief, and I'm sure you've heard this before, that the opposite of addiction isn't necessarily sobriety, but it's connection with others. And I'm a very strong believer in that. In that, once you develop a spirituality and a connection to a higher power, and a connection to your closest ones around you, that you can really begin to, not totally forget. I can begin to totally forget that kind of thing. And that's what really helped me.
I honestly think that is the big problem. In most of our religions, we're taught, that God or whatever is this being that's way out there, right? You hear the talk about a relationship, but we're still taught that God is something that is separate from us, and we're not really oftentimes have that connection. And especially, if we're not led by example to actually be connected or know that we can be connected. And then again, so connected to that higher source, and connected to one another. I think that's the two, seems to me, in my opinion, is the answer. And we're in such this society of so connected digitally, through social media and everything else, but more disconnected than ever. I mean, I know not just kids. I mean, I know a lot of kids have no idea how to talk to each other or to adults, but adults aren't too much different either. So. Yeah,
and that was the thing I struggled with most was, I guess, getting over my fear of connection, because I was so, and especially after I'd done all these these things, beat myself up for so many years and felt so, you know, regretful and remorseful and resentful and just all those feelings. I didn't want to, you know, come clean. I didn't want to connect to anyone and have to face that.
So how did you then end up getting clean? Was it your choice? Did you tell your parents, hey, I'm an addict, I want to get clean? Or how did you end up getting clean? And how can we share with these young people, not only the kids that might be watching this, but also for the parents that might be watching this?
Yeah.
How did you get out, and how can you recommend to the kids, and what do you recommend to a parent that might be watching this, of how they can help their kids if they might find themselves in this situation?
You know, the biggest thing in looking at this in retrospect is it feels just, I mean, infinitely better to know people and like be able to really connect with them and, you know, share our feelings and develop a relationship with, like I've now had this amazing relationship with my parents. And it was hard at first because it was really scary, and I kind of just had to jump into the fire and decide that, you know, I can live the rest of my life hating myself and, you know, hating the things I've done or hating everyone around me and just be filled with this anger and hatred because that's what used to drive, that's how I got out of bed in the morning, was pissed off, and it would be the whole day. And but it's so much more powerful now and just more energizing to feel that love and connectedness and want to give it to other people. And
it sounds like you have some knowledge of the law of attraction and can understand and see now that when we are in that, what I call a low vibration, when we're pissed off or we're sad or whatever, the energy of that draws negative situations to us. When on the other hand, if we have a positive attitude, if have gratitude or whatever, and we're thankful, or we have love, or we have forgiveness or whatever, those things attract amazing things to us, and it just gets better and better. So I'm really excited to hear 19, right? You're 19, that a 19-year-old is grasping these concepts and understanding the power that we actually are powerful creators. And that we actually create our own lives and our own reality, and we aren't powerless, and we're not victims.
Yeah,
right?
we define our own boundaries and our own limits.
So yeah.
And
okay. Well, I really, really appreciate you taking your time to come and to share this, because there's a big need for kids to know that. I think a lot of people, not only kids, a lot of people feel alone and feel like that they can't talk to anyone, and so just your ability, your willingness to share this, I trust will really touch someone's life and hopefully give them the courage to reach out and find an adult that they can talk to, hopefully their own parents, but if not, find an adult or find somebody that you can talk to and begin to open up your heart and share your feelings with, because that's what it is all about, is that connection.
Yeah, and you know, the greatest piece of information or advice that anyone's ever given me is that it's okay to love yourself. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about, and you know, it's nothing to be egotistical or narcissistic about, but it is so okay to love yourself, and it feels just awesome.
It feels awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad, Kovan, you brought that up, because in all honesty, that really is the key. If you don't love yourself, you can't give away something that you don't have, and it all starts with self-love, because other people can't love us either if we don't first love ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful that you brought that up. That's a very important point. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing. And thank you for watching.